Welcome along, or welcome back, to one of my previews this week for week 5. I'm going to be breaking up into two parts. Going to do Friday and Saturday's games in this one, and then another edition coming out a bit later on Sunday's games. So I can be a bit closer to the team news for the weekend's matches. So Friday and Saturday, it's starting off with a really exciting game actually. Real Betis against Real Sociedad on Friday night. Both teams I think are expecting to do better than what we're currently seeing. Betis it's not been a drastically disappointing start. It has been for Real Sociedad. But for Betis, ticking along nicely, but drawing too many games. And last week was an example of that. 2-0 down against Levante and away from home. And after 10 minutes, I think it was, and then coming back to draw 2-2. And they probably really should have won it, despite being 2 goals behind. Second half was all Betis. They dominated, left it too late to get the equaliser, but it was still sufficient time left to get the winner, but they never materialised. Abde is back for Betis, so that's a good sign. No Isco, of course, so he's still missing. Lo Celso, interestingly, was on the bench last week, and 1 or 2 rotations from Pellegrini. But they play Nottingham Forest at home on Wednesday in the Europa League, so I'm sure there'll be some changes and some aspects of the team that Pellegrini will look at and decide who to rest up for the game against Nottingham Forest. So it might give Real Sociedad the opportunity. I would make Betis slight favourites in this game because of the advantage of playing at home. Real Sociedad, clearly, as I've said before, and I hope I don't keep saying this on every preview that I'm doing, they don't score enough goals. But last week there was an improvement in their performance, all-round performance. It was much better last week, despite the fact they lost 2-1 at home to Real Madrid. It was a tough game, but they did have a man advantage for a large part of it. But I was more impressed with Real Sociedad last week in terms of the tenacity they showed. The encouragement was there from the crowd. Fantastic atmosphere in the stadium. And Real Sociedad, it was a much improved performance. So can they improve and get a result in this one, get their first win of the season? It's going to be tough. I'm going to predict a Betis victory by 1-0 because both teams don't score an abundance of goals. Umar Sadiq is the big news for Real Sociedad this week. Back in the Real Sociedad squad for the first time since December. Of course, since then he went out on loan to Valencia, scored goals, and as soon as he left and went to Valencia on loan, you thought that's exactly the type of player Real Sociedad could do with. He's never really had opportunity at the club, but he's back in the squad this week. Will he be involved in this one? We might see him from the bench. I don't think he'll start. I think Oyarzabal will still lead the line. I thought he played well enough last week, but he's a good attacking option for Sergio to bring in if needed, and I think it will be needed. So I'm going to predict a 1-0 win for Betis in this Friday night affair. Then on Saturday, when I talk about interesting games, Girona against Levante. Both teams got 1 point. Girona got theirs last week with a much improved performance. They went out and spent some money in the last week of the transfer window. It's been crying out for them to back Michel, and that's exactly what they did. And one of those, Vladislav Vanat, scored a really good goal. The big striker from Dynamo Kiev, a Ukrainian, looked the part and looked. I guess they're hoping he's going to be the new Dovbyk. We'll wait and see. But that was what I was joking about last week. But he led the line well, and it was a much better performance. Brian Hill come off the bench and looked just like Brian Hill. So I think I'll be surprised to see he starts this week. It was much better all round from Girona. They didn't get the win. They were denied by a really late penalty for Celta Vigo. It was a penalty. Daley Blind attempted to hack the ball clear and just caught the shins of an opposing player. Clear penalty, but poor Iglesias tucked it away, and that meant that Girona didn't get the 3 points. They probably deserved it, to be honest. So I'm expecting to see better from them again this week, with the new players having an extra week to bed down. Levante, just talked about them in the Betis preview. 2-0 up again, second time this season. They lost 3-2 against Barcelona, went 2-0 up. Last week they drew 2-2. Etery Young amongst the goals. I'm still baffled by that transfer from Villarreal of Etery Young, just for 3 million I think it was. And he looks a real asset to Levante. Can they score goals? Can they defend against Girona? I think this is going to be an open game. I'm going to go for Levante to score, but I'm going to go for a Girona home win. I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory for Michel's team, to lift them off the bottom of the table. I know we're early in the season, we're only 4 games in, week 5 coming up, but it's still a surprise to see Girona bottom of the pile with 1 point. As I say, this is it too early for a must-win game this stage of the season? Probably Levante, newly promoted, they know it's going to be tough, and You know, and in normal circumstances, an away match against Girona, you wouldn't expect them to win. But because of the start Girona had, it's a possibility. But I'm going to go for a close home victory, 2-1 to Girona, with Van Aert again on the score sheet. After that, on Saturday afternoon, the 4:15 kickoff, it's Real Madrid against Espanyol. High-flying Espanyol. It's 2 weeks on the trot, I've said that. I'm fortunate enough to be going out to Madrid to be co-commentating on this game. Some interesting subplots. I think we can look at the form of Espanyol. They're flying, I think. And we have to give a real mention to Tyrese Dolan, who joined the club on a free transfer from Blackburn. And when you see the win against Mallorca on Monday evening, how popular he's become. Didn't start the first game of the season, come off the bench, has become a fixture in the starting 11 since. No surprise, because his performances have been absolutely fantastic. 24 years of age, free transfer from Blackburn. The Espanyol supporters absolutely adore him already. And I expect him to start, and hoping he's going to start against Real Madrid at the Bernabeu. You leave Blackburn Rovers in the Championship, you go to Espanyol. You've got to fight your way into the team. There's 1 or 2 good players ahead of him. He could be starting and playing against Real Madrid this week at the Bernabeu. So that's a nice little story. Manolo Gonzalez, that's another great story. But the Espanyol flying, 2-0 up against Mallorca Monday night. Really good game. Mallorca got back 2-2 and you're thinking, oh, this is going to be a draw, Espanyol going to buckle. No, they came back and got the win. And it was Dolan who earned the penalty for Espanyol to tuck away and get all 3 points. So 10 points Espanyol, they're in 3rd position. So we can class this as a first v third, top of the table clash. Week 5 of La Liga, and it's Real Madrid Espanyol. In saying that, it was 4-1 to Real Madrid last season. Although Espanyol did win the return fixture towards the end of the season, that put paid to Real Madrid's chances of winning the title. They went 1-0 up last season. I think it was a Courtois own goal it goes down as. But 4 goals from Real Madrid. They only held the lead for 4 minutes. Real Madrid equalised, then went on to win 4-1 with 3 relatively late goals. 1 or 2 issues for Real Madrid. When I say 1 or 2 issues, Camavinga's fit again, Bellingham's fit again. Endrick looks like he's going to be in the squad as well. The issues are Vinicius was on the bench at midweek against Marseille. The second time this season, and there are rumours circulating that his contract hasn't been signed yet, and the relationship between him and Xabi Alonso might not be the best. And Vinicius, it's interesting to see how that one's going to play out. My opinion, Real Madrid shouldn't be looking at letting Vinicius leave. I think he's a world-class player. Difficult little period in his career and his life, but I think he'll overcome it. And I unless it's ridiculous money, more than Barcelona got for Neymar, it would have to be for me. Then I wouldn't entertain it if I was Real Madrid. And Xabi Alonso, there needs to be a way to get Vinicius back to his best form. Dropping him, leaving him on the bench, is that the right way? It is with some players it isn't. Showing him faith, perhaps that might be a better option. So I don't think his form has been desperately bad, but I'd expect him to play in this game. And if he finds form, I expect Real Madrid to win this game. And Mbappe is just sensational at the moment. Probably doesn't help the mood of Vinicius, but I haven't seen any too many signs of Vinicius getting the ump with Mbappe getting all the goals, getting all the credit. So I'm going to go, in this game, I'm going to go for a 3-0 victory for Real Madrid. Then we move on to Villarreal Osasuna. There's actually 5 games on Saturday because there's midweek round of fixtures. There's no Monday night match. Going to go into Villarreal Osasuna. Villarreal started the season off well, but back-to-back defeats in the week. Not great. But when you look at the fixtures, Atletico Madrid away 2-0. Yep, that can be expected. They win the game very much of the time for that 90 minutes. Then they lose to Spurs away from home in the Champions League. Luis Junior with a bad mistake for the goal. Other than that, there was very little difference between the two teams. So they make it home against Osasuna. Osasuna got 2 goals last week and Budimir didn't score. And Budimir was on the bench. He came off the bench, but the other players scored for Osasuna. Alessio Lisci is the manager and he has to find other players that can score goals. Raul Garcia led the line from the start of the game last week. Played well, got a goal. But I think that Villarreal are just too much for Osasuna in this game. I think Osasuna's points are going to come, majority of them this season, at home. So I'm going to go for Villarreal, despite the back-to-back defeats. I'm going to give them the 2-1 victory at home, because I think the 2 defeats away from home against 2 decent teams. Then we go to Alaves Sevilla, which I think is kicking off at the same time as Villarreal Osasuna. Alaves with a big win away from home against Athletic Club last week. Surprise, a little bit fortunate. They were outplayed. Athletic had more shots, more possession, and it was an own goal. A bit of a fluky own goal, a cross that deflected off Berenguer that went in, looped in towards the far post. But Alaves are full of determination, full of spirit. Similar to Osasuna, I think the majority of their points, they're going to lead them up the table, are going to be gained at home. But to see Alaves with 7 points at this stage of the season, a couple of wins under their belt and a draw in 4 matches. They've signed Mariano Diaz up front. They've got Tony Martinez that can play up front. And Lucas Boye has been added to the squad. So they've got 3 strikers, but they only play 1 up front. And if you've got 3 strikers of this quality, and you're expecting to be maybe in a relegation battle, I would hope that Eduardo Caldec can somehow find a system that gets 2 of them in. Because they're 3 really good players. Now they're facing a team in Sevilla who are having their trials and tribulations. Players leaving the club, failing to register players in time for the opening 2 or 3 games. But when I covered their game last week against Elche, the starting 11 is really good. They've got a top-class midfield. Agume, Goodell and Mendy came in. Batista Mendy came in. It looks a formidable midfield. Scoring goals might be a problem. Isaac Romero got the goal last week. Peque came off the bench to get a late equaliser. But I think the starting 11 for Sevilla is not bad. Do I expect them to be challenging for Europe? No. I was concerned there was going to be a relegation battle. I don't think that's going to be the case. At least not until January. And then we'll see the situation in January. Whether more players leave, I don't know. But at the moment, I think this is a tight one to call. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 in this game. And then the last game to round off Saturday night's matches is Valencia against Athletic Club. Now, Valencia were absolutely diabolical against a very good Barcelona on Sunday night, I have to say. But I was disappointed with the lineup. The back 5, it was a back 5, it wasn't 3. A midfield 4 and then a centre forward that was miles away from everybody else. It was positional in terms of defensive play. No one was aggressive. No one was confrontational. No one went and closed the ball down. They allowed Barcelona to play exactly as they wanted. It's becoming a habit now, Valencia getting smashed by Barcelona. So can they recover their form in this game against Athletic Club? Tough one. Morale looked really low. And it didn't look like it wasn't the right system. Whether they go back to a back 4 or not, I don't know. Corberan does chop and change. And for Athletic Club, 2 disappointing results. The disappointing result against Alaves. And then I thought a disappointing result and performance against Arsenal. The Lions of Bilbao didn't show their teeth against the Gunners, and I was surprised at that. Superb atmosphere in the stadium. The supporters are going to love playing in the Champions League if their team are competitive. I thought it was a polite performance. I think it lacked belief from Athletic Club. When I look at the result pre-season when they got smashed 3-0 at the Emirates, it looked like a team that didn't have any belief in this match. Surprised to see some of the team selections as well. Fullbacks were changed. No Jesus Arezzo, no Yuri Bacici. Ruiz de Galarreta was on the bench as well. I expected him to play midfield. I know he's had 1 or 2 injury issues. No Nico Williams, which is a big blow. But I think that the 2 disappointing results for Athletic Club means they come, firing on all cylinders back in this game. They have to show that up and at aggression in home games in the Champions League. That's a given. I just thought they lacked that in this one. Unlucky against Alaves last week. Can they get 3 points? I'm going to go for another draw. I'm going to go through Valencia, not as bad as we saw last week. So I'm going to go for another 1-1 draw in this one. Honours shared. And as I say, that's the Friday and Saturday games. And I'll be back to do the edition for previewing the Sunday matches nearer to the day. So have a great weekend.